Hello, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. You are now entering Season 2 of the Swan Hockey Podcast. Swan Hockey is flying around the junior hockey world one episode at a time. You'll experience things dreams are made of, as well as things of terrible nightmares. Strap in, hold on, and enjoy the ride. And now, Swan Hockey.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Swan Hockey. I am Eric Swanek. We are in Season 2, and before we get into this, we have a junior hockey session coming up April 7th in the Discord, completely free. You can get there from swanhockey.com, join the Discord. The topic is making a junior hockey team off-season guide. So hope to see you there. Again, you can get there from swanhockey.com. This episode, we are joined once again by Bill Underwood. Bill, what's going on?
Just typical stuff for districts last week. Now we're getting into the end of this season, and the funny thing is, right afterwards, the beginning of next season, because we start getting the spring things. So really, 2026, 2027 will start in May.
It never stops. It's so funny because I'll talk to my friends and stuff, or just other people that are like, you do hockey, so you're off in the summer. I'm like, no, it never stops. It just changes. There's never really an off time. So let's dive into this. I want to dive into a couple episodes ago. Andrew Serpico from Neutral Zone. He's the assistant director of U.S. scouting for Neutral Zone. Him and I were speaking about the NTDP. And I had mentioned that I think it's time that USA Hockey seriously looks at getting rid of this program for a few different reasons. And, for me, it's kind of like, okay, what else could we do with the money? Because is the program necessary? I don't think it 100% is. And I think it should really be looked at, because I think we may be able to tackle some more important priorities at this point for where we are today in the game. And I think we should look at that, because when I look at the NTDP, it's like, okay, it was designed to develop the top American players in certain birth years, and we spend a lot of money on it. From what I am told, the NHL gives that program about $8 million a year. And I think right now, with just these rule changes with the CHL, NCAA, more top talent is starting to choose the CHL. So we're not really developing all the top talent like we set out to do. So it's not really accomplishing that. That's one thing. Another piece of it for me is that I think the USHL right now is in a fight for its life against CHL. And, again, I want to just clarify here, not that the USHL is in a fight for its life. The USHL will be fine. But compared to the CHL, it's in a fight for its life. And if the USHL wants to start closing that gap and competing to try to close that gap, I think they need to make some adjustments. I think money being poured into the USHL could go a long way. And I just think there's better way for us to spend the resources right now that are going into the NTDP. I mean, the national team, last time I checked, they were last place in their division in the USHL. They did not look that great against the CHL top prospects this year. They just lost 2 games at the NA top prospect showcase, which was against uncommitted NA players that, thrown together all-star teams. They just went 0-2 there. So from a team aspect, it doesn't seem like it's going overly great. And from a player development aspect, again, we can dive more into that. I just rambled on a lot. Bill, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, NDT was not necessarily set up as they always say, setting it up to do better in international play. But the reality is you're never to have one birth year that played together there, playing together at the senior level at international events, and even at the junior level, you have several birth years. 2, you are never going to have all the players playing in one source, one team, typically once they go from there. So the whole chemistry thing goes out the window. A large thing why I always suspect it was started was to try to keep U.S. players from going to the CHL. Now, that's point is moot on that. And in the end, you think about the development, all right? You're spending $8 million to develop 40 players who could play somewhere else and develop fine.
And that's just the NHL money. That's just the NHL money, right? Then there's whatever other money's poured into it too, right? So the figure could be much larger.
It could be, but also it might be, I don't know exactly what the figures are, but the point is a lot of money is spent on it, always was. And the thing is, the 40 players you're developing, what about player 41, who's an excellent player? What about player 42? For 40-odd players, you're doing it, and players that could find a place to play and develop with no problem. Every one of them could play in the CHL, USHL. Some will go right to college, of course, after coming out of Minnesota high school or something like that. And so in the end, all these players have been fine. They're developed perfectly fine through the private sector, if you will. It were done fine. So it was really a vanity thing, I think, to a large degree, why it was formed, to keep kids from going to Canada. Now, in the end, point is moot. Now, the thing about it is this. It's sort of like I always used to say about the old Soviet system. It was great at developing 20 great hockey players. Well, the Canadian system was set up on a private basis, and it was put together to develop a league, not a team. And this is almost like the old Soviet system, which, again, produced 20 great hockey players. But the point is, why not develop more players? Now, I don't know if you put the money in the USHL because, again, the USHL is doing fine without it. They're still developing players, and you have the CHL there. And so what's the problem? Where the money should go is youth hockey. Think about how many kids have a tough time paying for youth hockey. It's an expensive sport here, all right? If you take those millions of dollars and start a small account, $5,000, $10,000, how many kids could you help play hockey in a year? You think about it, it's literally hundreds. You could really, if you gave money to different youth organizations that could use the money, how many of them could you help? You gave $100,000 to each organization. Think about it. You'd have a fair number of youth organizations that would get money. You divide that down. So and really, if you're talking development, that's where it all starts, in the grassroots level. The elite player will always find his way to the top. He's never going to have a tough time developing, never have a difficulty becoming a better player. The problem is the grassroots and those players that, you can increase numbers and some will become elite players. You don't sit there and think about ex post facto. He's 17 and an elite player. That kid will be fine. We got to think about a 7-year-old who could be an elite player, but something, he can't afford to play AAA hockey. And that is where a lot of money could go. It could go to improving a lot of things in youth hockey, and that's where it all starts.
And before people pick that apart, I know you're using that as an example, right? But 7-year-old AAA hockey, not needed. But I know you're using that as an example. Basically, you're saying a younger player that where AAA will help them. You're saying basically develop the foundation.
I'm saying will become a AAA player at 7. I'm talking about that 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old that will become a AAA player if he's given the chance. That will become that player. Right now, of course, I know that. But I'm just saying the thing is.
No, I know. I just I could picture somebody out there being confused, being like, 7-year-old AAA.
No, but a 7-year-old kid that's a good athlete, and we have kids here that are not the richest kids in the world. They're great athletes, but they can't afford to play hockey. Now, think about if we got more of those kids, like the Ed Snyder Foundation. Some good players have come out of that. Thank God there's Ed Snyder Foundation for those kids. They were not economically well-off kids. They end up becoming AAA players and becoming pretty good because they had a foundation to take care of them. There aren't many Ed Snyder Foundations out there, and they only can help so many kids.
Well, that's an interesting idea. I mean, that's an interesting idea. Yeah. I mean, so even if we go back to the development of it, and and then I'm going to share with you my ideas, like in terms of like with the USHL. But if we go back to the development of it, you mentioned, okay, they're developing the top 40. What happened? What about guy number 41? Right. Well, I would even argue that further, saying, what about guy number 40? What about guy number 39? Where at what point is it a curse that you made the NTDP, where it's like, okay, if you're, they're taking the foot, okay, so I'm a center and I'm the 4th best center at this birth year. I think it's fine. Man, maybe if I was the 5th best and didn't make the team, I'd be playing top line minutes somewhere else in a great system, in a great league, right? So, because obviously everybody can't play top line minutes. We're taking our best and theoretically cutting playing time, where if you did spread those guys out amongst the USHL, and run with me here for a minute. If you spread those guys out amongst the USHL, there's more opportunity for them to get more time. And I honestly think it would help the USHL, because think about the great players that have come through that program that the NTDP takes the credit for, right? Imagine if Jack Hughes played for the Des Moines Buccaneers or, Tri-City or whoever. Imagine the jersey sales that they would be having right now. Imagine the pride in that city that would be happening right now, where having the NTDP, just even if you forget about the hockey, just business wise with the USHL teams, they're missing out on every superstar. They're not going to have those big household names. They're not going to have those big blockbuster trades, all that stuff that stirs up a fan base and drives jersey sales, ticket sales, all this. They can't get that because they take every top end player at the birth year and they isolate them on one team. So even from a business standpoint, it's I think it hurts the league, where if you put these guys back in the league, and I think there's a way to do it.
I think it makes no difference. USHL is more like a minor league hockey market. In minor league hockey, in the ECHL, they couldn't care less if a guy goes on to the NHL. They just care that he's a star there. And when he's there, they're going to embrace him. And the team they embrace is a local phenomenon. It's not just a star player. It's a local phenomenon. It's a thing to do. It's not the same site calculation, again, even in American hockey, like in the ECHL, it's not a calculation of who's playing there. It's a calculation of the team there. And a lot of these teams become an institution in the area, and the players are going to change year to year. They know that. And it's something that there's a huge turnover. It's the way it works.
Yeah, but everybody likes the superstar. It doesn't matter what sport, what team, what league. Everybody likes the superstar. And if you're taking those superstars out, it definitely can't help. It definitely can't help.
Let me bring the name Scott Bertoli up. Why I bring that is this. Birdie was an absolute hero in Trenton. When you put the jersey auctions up there, his jersey would go way more than the guys that moved to NHL. Jack Hughes is a hero
in the country.
Now he is, but at that point, who would he be? He'd just be another 17-year-old kid. And the point is, they're not going to go gagas. This is not Canada. All right, in Canada, where you have a Connor McDavid being a national news story, yeah, you'll have a little excitement there, of course. But this is a place where any 17-year-old hockey player is a minor story. It doesn't matter. Nobody really cares.
I think there would be pride. And listen, maybe not, but there would be the opportunity for it, right? Right now, by isolating those kids, it's definitely not helping, right? I think you could see a lot of pride with those guys that are now superstars today, whether it's in the NHL, the Olympics, those superstars. I think that a lot of pride would come back to their junior city.
Think about this. Oh, there's always pride. If the kid's from a hometown, there's always pride. But when he's there is an important thing. And think about college football, even in this country. The Penn State fans give a damn if their quarterback's going to make the NFL or if he's even make the CFL. They don't. If he leads you to national championship, he's the local hero. And he's a big deal in town. 5 years later, it's not going to impact anything. Now he's an NFL star. Fine, he is here. We're proud of him. But the important thing for selling for Penn State football is how was he when he was in state college. And that's all local. And if the player's a star, he could be a little teeny tiny kid that's not going to ever play Division I college hockey. But if he's a USHL superstar, he will be the guy. He will be the man. He will sell tickets.
That's what I'm saying. We're taking the best players and not playing them in the USHL teams. We're isolating them all on the same team. Right, that's what I'm saying. You're taking the best players in this birth year and isolating them. You're not allowing them to play on the other USHL teams and get that notoriety and get that excitement going.
Which is fine, but there's two problems with that. One, just let them go to any team in any league that they're going to play. Number one. Number two, you go to junior hockey, especially a league like the USHL. A lot of those kids aren't going to play a lot. They're going to have their ice time diminished, actually, because a 20-year-old will play over them. So the point is, instead of just saying go to one league.
Well, I don't know. The USHL is a young league, right? They could only have 4 20s.
Yeah, but they have a lot of 19s. They have a lot of 18s. The veterans are going to play. And so the point being is, I think in the end, the point is just let them go to any top-level junior team, wherever they're at. And the bottom line is you're going to see the player develop. In terms of developing the league, I think that everything even the CHL is the same thing. that it's all localized. It's your local hero. Where he plays the NHL in the future, if he is scoring 100 points for you, he's the hero of today. And the hero of today is what sells tickets, what sells sweaters, et cetera, et cetera. The hero of today.
But I think those guys are heroes of today. I mean, look, they get drafted in the NHL, right? You're going to instantly increase the USHL team's draft selection. You're going to increase, a lot of them, they get drafted high, right? You're going to have heroes. You're going to have those guys that the town is rallying behind that are obviously doing well in the games and are going to, again, each team is going to see their NHL draft picks start to go up. That could only be good for the fan base. It definitely can't be bad.
It might be horrible because you might lose a kid at 18.
How?
And therefore he goes to NHL. And the point being, or he goes to Division
If
One.
a kid goes to the NHL from the USHL, that's great for the fan base.
I'm speaking from a different angle. I work with a Canadian Hockey League team. Does who's going to the NHL sell our tickets? Does it sell our sweaters? No, it's who's doing well right now. It doesn't matter.
You're telling me guys that are doing bad are going to the NHL though? Right,
well, some guys are not.
They have to be doing well right now in order to go to the NHL.
Let me put it this way: signs of guys are 6'5" kids that are not amazing junior players at this point that get drafted. Why? They're 6'5" and they're big. Their guys are good players, but great players, no. And some of your great players will go, but some of your great players won't go. We've had some players that have been excellent junior players that don't go in the NHL.
But I'm saying
they're heroes.
But I'm saying your example of a guy going to the NHL and leaving, right? That player obviously is going to be doing great in the USHL for him to go to the NHL. Same thing with your league in the OHL.
I'm just saying that a guy who's not going to ever do that can be great in our league too. Same thing with the USHL.
Yeah, and that's fine
being
too.
A great junior. I've been in this business for 40 years. Yeah. I've seen amazing junior players be very terrible pro players. So the point being is what drives a team and will drive a league ultimately is who is your star today. And it doesn't matter who they are as long as they're a star. And it could be a guy like I remember little Steve Sugiera who played the Western League.
You don't think taking the top 40 kids or the top 20, in two different birth years for a total of 40 or whatever. You don't think taking the top 40 kids and putting them all on one team removes stars from the other teams?
Yes, it absolutely does. But my point is, I'm just saying, I've said that all along. But the point is, why not have them play the Canadian Hockey League too? Why not have some, why don't you do Austin Matthews? Some kids go play in Europe.
They're trying to grow the USHL, right? Like the USA Hockey is not going to get rid of the NTDP to help the Canadian Hockey League. Right. My point is how can we reallocate resources to help grow the USHL?
They're not going to do anything the USHL, number one, doesn't need their help. The USHL is an enormously successful league. If I'm a USHL owner right now, the point is, I'm a USHL owner. Do I want to be told I'm paying my players now? That's the last thing on earth I want to hear a word about. I don't want to hear anything about paying players. I want to hear about how I can keep my business going well. And right now, if I'm a USHL owner, I'm saying it's going well, very well right now, thanks. I'm making a ton of money. I have next to no overhead. So therefore, I'm sitting there and making a nice profit, and I'm enjoying life.
I think there's a lot of problems in the USHL right now. I think there's almost like a civil war about to happen with the owners and the teams. I think because look, if you take just the supposed NHL money, right, just the $8 million, and you divide that amongst, let's say the NHL reallocated that money to the USHL. That comes out to about $500,000 per team, right? Which comes out to about a little over $23,000 per player. So each team would have a little over $23,000 per player that they can now spend on improving the quality of experience and the quality of everything for that player. Which, does that solve all problems today? I'm not saying I think it does, but I think it starts getting us to go in the right direction. And on top of it, I think you can still implement some NTDP, items, implement them in the USHL, right? So where, just like they're doing with the NDL now, where the NDL is not a league, it's more of a badge. I think you can start to do the same thing with the NTDP, where say, hey, these kids are going to play in the USHL for all the regular teams, but now every player in the USHL of these birth years are going to get these added, not incentives, but these added benefits that are going to be the NTDP badge. They're going to get these added benefits, and that's the incentive for American players to play in the USHL instead of going to the CHL. But you got to build something that's worth them sticking around for and playing. And then the other thing, last thing I want to say here on this, Bill, is the other thing too, is if you start to implement that, and now you have the NTDP badge telling all these teams, hey, all your 17-year-olds, all your 18-year-olds, this is the testing that you guys are required to do on them every week, or whatever it is that they want done for their players, diets, whatever, right? I think if the USHL teams are now responsible for collecting that data and providing it back to the NTDP on all their 17 and 18-year-olds, I think we'll start to see USHL teams that say to themselves, hey, you know what? Why don't we just do this for all our kids? And we'll start doing the data for the rest of the guys internally. That's going to start to elevate the quality of the league, the quality of everything. It will force the rest of the USHL teams to start raising the bar on their own standards, and they're going to do it voluntarily, which is going to be awesome.
Big if, number one, that owner suddenly doesn't have a bank account that has $500,000 more in it, and say, hey, I'm eating losses. Why am I paying anything more out? Some of these teams are losing money. So you know what? I'm not going to lose money anymore. I'm going to put that annual bit in my bank account and make sure I'm not going to lose money.
You make it mandatory. You put it in the league you make it mandatory what that money has to be allocated towards.
Good luck. Good luck. You're going to tell owners to do that. Good luck. You ever get in a room with professional sports owners? A Cleveland Reporter once said something about sports ownership, and you can say to a degree in some junior leagues, professional sports owners are the type of guy that would take a dime out of a urinal. All right? The bottom line is trying to get these guys to go and put the money into their programs and play it up honest to say, sure, we'll take this money. I'm losing $300,000 a year, but you're giving me $500,000 more to spend on other stuff. Well, you know something? Why don't we spend $300,000 of it getting me out of debt each year? So this is no longer just a hobby for me. And then of course there's quality control. Remember, NDT has a huge advantage. They have these kids living like monks in a dorm. They can watch every single thing they eat. They have absolute control over them. That's going to suddenly be a major burden. Do I see any junior team going out saying that we're going to start an old Soviet-style dacha and have kids living in it and run the whole thing like that? I doubt it very much. And so the thing is, I think there are a lot of interesting ideas.
Well, no, you can't do the 24-hour surveillance or anything like.
No. But the point is, that's part of the magic of that national development team. They know everything that goes that kid's mouth. You have them live away from that environment. Do you think these guys aren't going to become junk food junkies a little bit? Of course they are. You think they're not going to be up till 3 a.m. playing their PlayStation? Of course they are. A lot of the whole secret to it is just like the Soviets had. They had absolute control over their players. No wonder they were in amazing condition. They had them training 11 months a year. They had them staying at dachas, outside of town, sometimes at home, and then training. They go down to the Black Sea coast and train in the summer again in a camp.
Yeah, and I don't think that's great necessarily to begin with. I mean, I think too much of anything is not good.
I agree, but I'm just saying that's part the U.S. National Development Team. What I'm always astounded by about is their conditioning and how they handle these kids. But gee, if I could control everything a kid ate, if I could control and monitor them like they do, it's no wonder they have the success. But you get a kid outside of that environment, you can't keep them monitored like that. And in the end, the USHL, I don't see it as being broke. I don't see it as something that needs fixing. It's something that's very successful, will continue to be successful. It's just be a little bit of change. I think it's a highly successful league, and I think it's going to continue to be, and it may elevate itself in the future. As time goes on, it's very believable. They might elevate themselves, and we may have a fourth major junior league. We might well have it. It's not unbelievable. It's something that could happen. I think they have some good leadership over there, and they have a lot of strong founding stones. And could there be a fourth major junior league? Could there be an overall North American Hockey League? Well, we can't use that one. Continental Hockey League, call it. Keep CHL. Yeah, we could do that. It's something that wouldn't be out of the question. But right now, it's not there, but it's something that could develop. And I don't think they really need a huge influx necessarily. They need to do some reorganizing, yes, and some adapting to the modern days, yes, but at the same time, I don't think it's so badly broken, and I don't think necessarily. Now, certainly money would help, but I don't think it's one thing. I don't think it will help anybody, including the CHL, if we get the paid player salaries for all our players. That's suddenly making a grave mistake. You're suddenly going to run into a lot of problems in junior hockey if you start getting into paying every. You're going to get, for one thing, you get this whole thing. We'll pay every player $25,000. What you're going to have happen very soon is the star player to say, "Damn it, I'm not a $25,000 player. I want
I'm not saying that that's the answer, right? Like it's, and I don't think, and like I said earlier, and like you just said now, like I don't think the USHL is like necessarily broken. I think the USHL is definitely not on par with the CHL. And I think that irks a lot of people. I don't think the USHL, or at least half of the USHL, right? Like I said, I think we're kind of getting close to Civil War territory. I think at least half of the USHL is not okay with not being on par with the CHL. So again, like, is the USHL broken? No. But are they on par with the CHL? No. And I don't think a lot of them are okay with that. So like in terms of trying to catch up, and look, like you and I are American, like I would love to see the USHL, I'd love to see the USHL surpass the CHL, right? Of course I'd love to see it, right? It's just, we got, but in terms of that, in terms of catching them and even surpassing them, we got to start to do something. And I think this could be a very interesting something to look at. I think it needs to be looked at.
I think the point is the catching and surpassing. First of all, surpassing, it's not the national sport down here. You're never going to surpass the CHL because it's not the national sport here. It's like saying in Canadian college football, they can come on par with NCAA or surpass it. It'll never happen. There's not the revenue, there's not the attention, there's not the sponsorship, never will be. It just isn't. No, you got to look at it that way.
I'm not saying that I think that's close to happening. I'm just saying, like, you and I are Americans. We would love to see that happen, right? I'm just using that as like we would love to see it, right? But now, like, okay, so how do we get the USHL going in the positive direction, to reach true major junior status?
I think that's going to be a very difficult thing so long as they keep this many teams. It's something that there are a lot of markets that just never could support it. There are some markets that could. But there are a lot of markets that couldn't. And it's an economic thing. It's just like, man, it'd be great to have a really strong spring football league like they talked about in the 80s, the USFL. Problem is, there just isn't the revenue to have a really great spring football league, or at least on a large basis, and really make it work. So you have certain limitations. Now, if they wanted to really shrink their league and put together, say, a 6 or 8 market league, that would be major junior, they probably could do that. But do you want to do that? So come to economic realities. How many of these cities and towns will support a major junior budget? They won't. And a major junior budget, remember, $500,000 isn't enough for it. Major junior budgets are millions. So you're talking about making some of these markets are right now losing $500,000 to suddenly be in the red, be in the black suddenly $1 to $2, $3 million. It's not happening. It's not going to be that big a swing. There are some markets that probably could do it. Again, there are some definitely could, but not enough. Now, in the end, does that mean it won't happen? There can't be a way that ultimately the USHL will be a 4th major junior league. It's something that I discussed back in the 80s. It'd be about a 4th major junior league. It's something that could happen, but it's not really close to happening. I'm not sure it's something that you can close the gap on that rapidly. But it may take shorter than people think. It may take a long, long, long time, but it may take shorter. It's going to take some sort of reorganization, belt tightening, redesigning, whatever. And so I would not rule it happening at some point. But at this point, I just don't think there's a quick fix. Now, the NDT, getting rid of it, yeah, I think. But would that necessarily accomplish the mission of the USHL? No. Could it help the USHL? Yes. But on the other hand, I think really in the end, the USA Hockey, the biggest mandate for USA Hockey is to make hockey in the United States grow and make it more accessible to develop players. And in the end, it's coming back to, do you want to help one league of players? Do you want to help a nation of players? And how many kids, again, say you offer a $5,000 stipend, which go a long way for a lot of kids. It's not all the way. I know it costs a lot more to play AAA than that, but it go a long way. And especially for little kids that would subsidize an entire season. $5,000 per kid. You figure how many kids are helped by that? You're dealing suddenly with literally, you're dealing with what? You're dealing with hundreds of kids, maybe over 1,000 kids you're helping. And that's a big number of kids getting involved in hockey and making something happen. And we're not talking about the hockey areas necessarily that we already have, like New England or Minnesota. You don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money there, but other growth places. It would help a great deal in these growth places. They're looking to grow the game, in quotes. Well, guess what? Only rich kids can play in those areas. It's only well-to-do kids can play in New England and Minnesota up to a large degree, but only rich kids can play in a lot of parts of this country. And if you helped a situation that is not just open to rich kids, wouldn't that be great?
It's an interesting idea. Let us know what you think in the Discord. We'll call it here. You can get to the Discord from the link in the description of this episode. The conversation always continues there. Let us know what you think. And remember, we got the junior hockey session coming up April 7th at 7 p.m. in the Discord. And Bill, pleasure as always. Thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon.
Absolutely.
Good whatever. It's not, whatever you're listening, so I shouldn't say good afternoon. Or good whatever.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, Bill. All right, guys, everyone take care. And until next time, I will see you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Swan Hockey Podcast. We remind you that season pass points are available to listeners. For more information, please visit www.swanhockey.io. Until next time.